Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Torchbearers, we continue our conversation with Sue Perry and Michael Kopf. Greetings and welcome. How are you, fellow Torchbearers?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Peachy Keen.
Fantastic. I haven't heard that phrase in a while.
I know. I don't even know where it came from. It just popped in my head. So I was like, all right, we're going with it.
It'll mean something later on. You never know. Uh, Last time we left our conversation in the middle, and I became aware of the vast dimensions of experience and knowledge that you guys have gathered during your life's adventure. So I figure let's explore that a little bit more. Both of you had mentioned having spirit guides that are not human, and that's the topic of next week's um, the UFO entity experience. So I figured we can start exploring that today and then continue it next Sunday. So I guess we'll start with Michael this time because last time we started with Sue. I strive for equality and balance. So, so Michael, what type of entities have you encountered that are not quite human, and how have they worked with you or guided you?
Well, one example I will share with you. I don't know how I met them, but I just followed my instincts and kind of just asked for help with something. And so the situation was I was driving to my great aunt's, and it was late at night, and we were on a dark stretch of road, an old highway that had no lights. And it was like one lane each side, one of those really old, like country style highways. And my mom and dad were in the front seat and we're like, maybe we should put the brights on. I'm getting an uneasy feeling. And I sat in the back seat and I just said to myself, hey, can we have a dragon come and help us to, get through this stretch of road and to keep the vehicle safe and keep us safe while we're driving this dark stretch? And I saw a dragon land on the top of the car and kind of like spew a little bit of fire just to light up. And I then heard myself say to my parent, especially my mom, because she was in the co-pilot seat and I didn't want to distract my dad. But I said, "Don't worry, the dragon, there's a dragon on top of the car that's going to keep us safe." And she just kind of paused for a second. I was like, "Well, thank you, and thank you, dragon." And we got where we needed to go safely. And there's little moments in my life where I don't know where instinctively I will call in help and what kind of help I call in, but calling in dragons, I think, fits your description to a T of non-human
Yes, it does.
entity help.
So that is amazing. Have you called other type of spirits? You've called on elves and gnomes and giants and gods and entities such as those?
I have called upon archangels. I have called upon gods, and so here's a funny thing with me and the archangels when I call them in. Because my name is Michael, and I kind of like instinctively knew a lot of the Archangel Michael stories, or the fact that he had a blue flaming sword. It's like I had this knowledge before I really read anything about him. And I would go and I would be like, oh, my friend is, not doing so well. They're not feeling well. I'd be like, hey, Raph, can you go help and heal my friend over here and do this? And of course, I'm meeting Archangel Raphael, the healing archangel, but it was just funny that I would call him Raph and be like, we're just buddy buddy.
Well, obviously you are. He came, your call, and he helped you.
Yeah, and I think. the bottom line though that why it works the way it works with me is it's coming from a place of love and it's coming from a place of respect and honor and tranquility and not coming from a place of, oh yeah, I know this, so I'm gonna, call on them and they're gonna do this because it's me and because I have this namesake and I'm, gonna do this or that. And so I think it has to do with my energy and intention and how it's presented in such a way and not the like people look at you and go, isn't that rude to call an archangel Raph? And I'm like, maybe from you, but not from me because I'm not being rude when I say it that way. And so I just want to make that kind of a little clarity of, a lot of when you're calling in things, it has to do with how you're calling them in, not just by words, but by your energy and intention behind it.
And you don't seem to be stuck in one particular cultural or pop cultural universe because you're dealing with dragons and with archangels. So these are from different mythic structures. So you
Yeah,
seem
I've called in Merlin, magicians, I've called in fairies, elves. I mean, whoever I feel like and am drawn to call on for help, I'll call on. I don't judge where they come from or what culture says about them. I'm like, hey, if I'm needing help and you're who's, I'm being guided to get help from, I'm going to trust my guidance and I'm going to ask for help. And so far, it's worked out great. And when it hasn't, it really has because I learned a lot from the experience, which is what we're supposed to do in the first place. So there really is no wrong choices. It's just a matter of how fast are you going to learn and what experiences are you going to learn from.
very well said. I think along the same lines. I view the invisible as something that's part of my family. And just like you don't talk to all your cousins, like at the same time, you don't see them for a while, and then you connect. It's the same thing with the invisible. And mine too come from various pantheons and realities, and they all seem to work together fairly well. And I have a very casual approach to these things, which some people call irreverent or rude. I understand what you're saying. Sue, how about you?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to be an Irish dancer. I was an Irish dancer and I played the violin at 4 years old. But I was an Irish dancer from 7 years old to about 17. And one of the time I went to a fest, which is an Irish competition in Dublin, Ohio. And I remember that I was competing against a lot of people that were Irish blooded, literally handed down by the family, very, very Irish to the boot. Some of them were even from Ireland and first generation here in the United States. And the competition was very, very fierce. Meanwhile, then there's me, who was born in South Korea, even though I was adopted to a family with kind of an European Irishy background and all that. And I'm a cultural mutt. I have a lot of backgrounds in me, but I I was out of place. I stuck out like a sore thumb. Here's an Asian in an Irish dancing competition, and I was upset because they were making fun of me. I was bullied. They were like, "You're never gonna succeed. You're never gonna win these medals or the trophy, or you're never gonna." There was just I was constantly, like, we're Irish blood. You're this Korean thing. You're never gonna make it. Some of them even called me Chinese or Japanese or whatever. A lot of them just didn't like me. Some of them were nice. Some of them were very, very nice. So I had in the Irish jig coming up as a competition, like about an hour from the main competition. And so I went outside, I started to cry, and I was like, how am I going to get through this? I mean, maybe they're right. I'm, not very good Irish dancer compared to them, and I was really doubting my worth, literally. And then all of a sudden, there's a little lady that came up to me. She was literally only about a foot and a half tall, at least 2 feet for the most. She came up to me, and she was a leprechaun. She had a thick Irish accent and everything. It was adorable. But I told her what my issue was, and it didn't surprise me when she came up to me. I was just sitting on one of those step areas, kind of like sort of like a curb, like in the back half the school. It was at a like a high school, and I was sitting kind of like a step down area, and she came up to me, and after I told her what was going on, she was telling me, you know what, in a thick Irish accent, those people are full of Irish blood. They can run as thick as heck. But you know what? You got the Irish heart. That's more important. So you put your heart into that dancing. Don't worry about those blood. And so I was like, okay. She said, you can do it. You're going to get it. You're going to defeat them in the Irish jig competition because they got their heads stuck up their bums. So I was like, okay. So I went and I actually competed against Ireland and England. There was an Irish dance school, and I competed in the Irish jig and I got first place.
All
So,
right.
so one of these days I can show you guys the medal. But yeah, I beat them and they were pissed. But you
Wait,
know what?
can we see the jig instead of the medal?
They were very upset with the fact that I defeated them. I never forgot about the leprechaun that helped me with that, and it said she talked more about that you don't have to worry about where your blood runs; it's where your heart runs. More than anything is more important. So whatever ethnic background you are, it doesn't matter. What are you going to put your heart into? It can be art, it can be dancing, it can be music, it can be, being in a spelling bee or whatever. If you want to be a part of something and your heart is into it, doesn't matter. So
Awesome.
yeah. So that was the one thing. I mean, otherwise throughout my life, I've always sometimes I didn't know who to call upon to help me, so I would ask God, send someone to help me. I had fairies that helped me with things. I've had some sort of disembodied being. I have no idea what. I've had angels help me get through a lot of, hard days. So, yeah, I've had lots of help. And I credit to every single one of them for helping me get through the hard parts of my life. So you're always guided and you're always surrounded. If people could actually see how full their house is, if they could see the layers of different dimensions and the veil and stuff, they would realize how full their place is. It's you have actually more around you than you can see.
I believe that I remember being in the crib. I have memories going back to babyhood, maybe earlier. And I remember what my parents' apartment was when I was born and came home. And there were physical people, and then there were other people that they couldn't see. And I could see them, but I know that the world is full of invisibles. And sometimes they're ancestors, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're unknown people, sometimes they're religious figures, sometimes they're mythical figures, sometimes they're aliens from outer space. They take on different forms. When I had a conversation with one of them, they said that they can assume any form, and that often they'll take a form that's needed or that'll help them communicate what they want to say to the person they're communicating with.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
Have any of these figures dramatically changed your life? Have inspired you to go in a particular direction or revealed something to you or have pointed something out to you?
Well, I would say it's kind of made my life interesting, and I've had to learn how to communicate with my friends. And I don't mean this term to sound differently, but humanity itself, because, like, when you are aware of things that, like, you call the invisible that are all around and everything. and you forget everybody can't see that or hear them, and you start talking to them, and everyone's like looking at you like you're crazy, and you're like, oh, now how do I get out of this? So I would say an impact is I've learned how to discern who in my friends I can be my true self with and who I can be mostly my true self with, and people that I'm around that I'm like, yeah, you're around as long as I talk about this, but not this or this or this. So you, I'm like, okay, so you're like an example would be like I have my paranormal friends that we do ghost hunting. So as long as I'm talking about ghost hunting, we get along. If I mention UFO or portal or something, they're like, nope, that's not us. So I'm like, yep, wrong group. Got to go to this group for that one. And so I've learned an impact in my life is to learn who you can and cannot share things with, and also learn how much to share. Because we all talk about like, oh, we're gonna be transparent, we're gonna, be an open book and we're gonna share this, but in reality, that kind of life doesn't really exist because there's always gonna be a part of your life that you go to share, and it's a part that nobody else can relate to, and you're like, yep, that's always going to be hidden. That's always going to be kept as a mystery to people because we want to get along and we want to interact and be around people and not isolated. So we learn what to share, when to share, and how to share.
Very wisely put. And yes, that's the truth that all of us need to discover on our own. I learned early on in life that although when I was a kid, I could share a lot of stuff. Because kids have imagination, and there's a wide folklore about these things in Greek culture. So it was within the folklore, and it was not acceptable on some level, but on another level, it's something that they didn't freak out about. But I learned as I got older that I had to shut out large parts of the world as I personally experience it and pretend that I'm lacking the senses to perceive these things and to just react to things everybody can see. And because again, you're right, people will freak out, people don't know how to deal with it, they don't know how to approach you, and all sorts of situations arise that could have easily been avoided.
Exactly.
How about you, Sue?
Well, I'm a little different. I usually surround myself with people that can take all of me, or it's not going to work because I don't have a certain set of people where for example, like Michael was saying, whether they can talk about paranormal for one group, aliens for another. Um, I usually hang out with people who can take all of it. I'm grateful that my husband is one of them. He can talk about absolutely every single topic without any judgment, scrutinizing, or anything. Um, Usually, I just kind of say what I need to say or want to say to people when it comes to any particular topic. And if they can't handle it and they walk away, that's it. It's sort of, I guess I see it as my own way of filtering out who I can hang out with and who I can't. I've talked about it any topic with anyone. If somebody's has a problem, I say, well, first you can call upon God if you don't know who to call on, uh, and He will give you suggestions on who to call on. He's got a huge staff, so so I don't know. I believe that I believe in absolutely being yourself and just um, just let the right people come into your life. It's a filter out system for me, but that's just me.
No, that's very wise. Also, I found as I get older, I've had several professions. I worked as an educator, I worked as a human services professional. I've been a therapist. I've been a lot of different professional things. And in the beginning, I played everything very straight and stuck to the script. But as I got older, I became more and more myself in my expression. And I found that because I was professionally good, people would tolerate my eccentricities. So I got to be more and more myself. I remember I used to look for organizations like Goodwill and the Salvation Army and, organizations on that caliber in human services. And when they used to send me to give talks, the place where I would be sent were very disappointed if I didn't show up in fur and leather and armbands and things like that, because I had a television show at the time. And that's how I used to dress in the TV show Wonder on New York and have the adventures. So they were very disappointed. So after a while, they stopped regulating me in terms of how I dress. So I could dress and be exactly how I wanted to be. I still have a professional reputation, and I started to stray more and more with um, giving talks on paranormal topics and so forth. So now it's not an issue anymore. I'm a local politician, and who I am. I'm open in everything I do, and it doesn't seem to bother anybody.
I think they are just natural filters, and my attitude is I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'd rather have quality of friends versus quantity of friends or people that I hang around with. This is how I see things. I prefer to hang around with people I can be my absolute comfortable, authentic self, and you get to that point in your life where that becomes more important than, being popular.
Again, very wise and very well said.
Well, and I also noticed too, to piggyback on this idea is when you can learn to, share stuff about yourself, but to do it at like levels, because as people get to know you, then when you drop those extraordinary, as they call them, parts of you, then they're like, okay, yeah, we can accept that. We don't necessarily believe it, but we can accept it because we know you. And that's a mistake a lot of people make is they feel like, everybody says you got to be honest and upfront when you meet people, so they put all their cards on the table out up front, and I call it like the shock and awe. You're like, here's everything. Now, if you can do this, we're good. If not, let's stop right here. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you do it in little increments and let them get to know you, then it's like, oh, that little tidbit that you might be keeping secret from that shock and awe entrance now may be more accepted because they have a foundation of knowing who you are instead of, oh, well, we just met and you're telling me this, and yeah, that freaks me out. So, yeah, probably not gonna, be calling you again.
It's like, okay, fine.
To reach their own comfort level, I guess, and whatever works
Right.
individual works for an individual at a different point in time. And sometimes that changes, sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So one right way if you're someone who's tuned to the invisible to deal with this reality. Did you ever question your sanity? Seriously, I'll share a story to get this.
What?
Uh,
Can I hold on? Give me a chance. Let me look that word up.
I work in human services for very many years. I worked in psychiatric hospitals. I worked for outpatient programs and all sorts of things. Eventually, I developed skills in workforce development and uh, vocational rehabilitation. But initially, I got into the mental health field to see what is the difference between being sensitive to other realities and madness. And I found that it wasn't the same thing. Although some people who had psychiatric disorders were attuned to the invisible and that's what they're reacting to, a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were reacting to things in their own head that were manifestations of things that are happening here deep inside of them, and they weren't necessarily connected to spirits of any sort. So it took me a few years to like really come to that conclusion, but I came to the conclusion. And I learned while working as a human service professional that you could believe anything you want, anything really, as long as you didn't disturb people. So if you wanted to believe that you were a 10,000-year-old vampire lord who was somehow worth a life and you wanted to become a vampire lord again, that's absolutely fine as long as you didn't bother anybody and as long as you were able to pay your bills. So that put a whole new perspective on sanity. But I find too that as long as you can function in society, you can believe anything. People do. And it's fun to explore other people's perceptions because it gives you a different viewpoint on the reality you find yourself. It's all happening. Also work with dreams, because there are ways of determining if you're dreaming. It's called lucid dreaming, when you wake up in the dream. Not all of those work. Sometimes it's like I had a dream the other day that I got up to go to the bathroom and I washed my face because I had like grit in my eyes. And then I looked in the mirror and my hair was like it was 20 years ago. It was dark brown and streaks of like blonde and red here and there. And I thought that my hair turned young again. So I called out in my dream. I tested to see if I'm dreaming. I looked at my hand. I counted to 5 and then looked at my hand again. I did all the things you do to test for lucid dreams. And according to my test, I wasn't dreaming. And then I called out to my wife, hey, hon, my hair turned dark again. And of course, none of that happened in this world, but it seemed that it did. So did you ever find yourself in a position where you question the reality you find yourself in, or your relationship with reality altogether? I guess you're
Well, I do that daily. Um,
Yeah.
good answer.
the, well, okay, so yes, I do it daily, but in different means because I am so I have routine in how I do things. And right now I've kind of been deviating away from the routine and it's confusing me and I'm like getting stuff done that I'm usually like a week or two ahead of the day before and I'm like what is going on? And what it is so in my reality I've already done this. And so when I go and I find that I haven't done it, it's like I'm in shock and I'm like, oh my God, I get into a little panic and I'm like, I gotta hurry up and do this because, this should already be done. How am I so far behind? And then I'll look at, the next day I may look at something and be like, oh wow, I'm like so far ahead. What am I gonna do? I can sit back and relax and then it's like you blink your eyes and you're like, how did 4 hours just go by and what did I do? And what just happened? And so reality is kind of an interesting thing for me because I look at, stuff going around and we have the ability to look at clocks, for example, to tell time. Our pets can't look at a clock and know what a clock says because they have no concept of numbers or, reading time. And it's usually at a level anyway that they can't see. But yet, when it's their dinner time, they are right there on your lap and are like, hey, we're here. It's dinner time. Can you feed us now? And it like always amazes me how they know what the time is for them, where we sit there and I can be sitting down at like 10:30 and go, okay, yeah, this will take me half an hour. Next thing I know, I look at the time and it's 4:30 and I'm like, what happened to lunchtime? What happened to the day? What? How did this happen? And so those are little examples of, common reality things that I think a lot of people deal with and experience. But another one is I can look up at the sky sometimes and I will see objects in the sky that I have not seen before, and I will be like, I will make note of it. I will mentally draw in my head what this looks like. And then I will go and reach out to some friends of mine and I'll be like, hey, have you ever seen this? And if they're like, no, I'm like, interesting. Okay. Now I'm gonna go reach out to these friends who are kind of more on the fringe of reality kind of people. And I'm like, have you seen this? And they're like, oh, my friends have come to visit you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not going insane. I did see what I thought I saw. Cool. Thank you. I don't need to know more than that. I'm like, I'm just comfortable in knowing I'm not going crazy things that aren't really there because yes, they were really there. And so that's kind of where reality takes a trip for me. And if I go outside at night and I see something and I'm like, oh, I don't have my phone on me. I go back inside to get my phone, and when I come back out, it's gone. I'm like, why? Why? It's like, I wanted to take a picture so that I could, see, get somebody's opinion on something. And it's like, nope. And I've learned that those moments are just meant to be personal moments. And now when I'm out and about, if I see something and I don't have my phone, I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna take a moment. I'm just gonna enjoy this moment. And I'm gonna enjoy the fact that I'm seeing something that probably half the people around me right now have no idea is above their house right now or above their neighborhood. And this is quite an amazing sight. And then I go inside and I'm like, thank you. Thank you for the show. Thank you for letting me know you were there. And go about my night or go about my day. But I will say one last thing about reality. Now that I see the moon up during the day versus only at night, on the days it's not there, I find myself constantly looking around and going, it's a clear day. There's no moon. Where is the moon? The moon is up now during the day, but it's not up right now. Where is it? What's going on? And so my mind starts going through all these little nuanced thoughts of, do I imagine the moon being up during the day now? And it really is only up at night. And then the next day I'll be like, nope, there's the moon. And then I'm like, so why is the moon not always up? What's going on? And so that's what reality does for me.
Okay, awesome. That leads to things like the Mandela effect and deja vu and synchronicity. How do you feel about those experiences? And then we'll go.
I I would say in my experience, they are very real. I have had deja vu where I have walked into people's houses that I just met and they invited me over to hang out and they'll be like, "Would you like something to drink?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll have a glass of water here. I'll go get you the glass." And they're like, and they look at me and I'm like, and I'll open the cupboard. I'll be like, "Here's your glass. Here's the glass." And they're like, "How did you know I keep my glasses there?" And I just look at him, I'm like, I don't know. I just knew. Or I could go to a park and I'll be like, oh man, there's gonna be a wild animal that's gonna poke its head out over there and, you know, then it'll disappear. And sure enough, I'll be like, there's a wild animal poking its head out. And I'm like, how did I know it was gonna do that? Because there's really not a lot of wildlife around here. And so deja vu I don't know. I kind of have a theory in my mind of the Mandela effects and deja vu. For the most part, I'll focus on those two with this comment is I hear people talking about how we have different timelines that are existing that are merging into one to create our pure timeline. And so the Mandela effects and the deja vus are aspects of other timelines that have blended into this one that didn't fully change, that for some reason we maintained memory of. And synchronicity, I feel like synchronicity is the divine way of reminding us that we're always, you know, have spirits and we always have help all around us to help us through each day. We're never truly alone and just isolated on an island, so to speak. And so, whenever, because you'll notice, like, whenever you're thinking about a topic and you're like, I don't know anybody that knows that topic, and I don't really know how to go further on it, somebody will reach out to you and they will talk and they will bring up that topic. And you're like, dude, how did you know I was thinking about that? Those are the kind of moments that I'm talking about where I say, we're not alone. We're constantly being guided and helped is the universe puts in our paths everything we need to succeed if we just are open to it and acknowledge it for what it is and not try to make it what we want it to be. That's the trick of it.
Awesome. Thank you. That was awesome. So what do you think about synchronicities and like deja vus and Mandela?
Well, I remember a time, and I'm going to talk about timeline. There could be many different reasons. I don't think there's one particular way of how something comes about for you. For example, there's no one way to get a glass of water. You know, there's no one way for somebody to say I love you. There's no one kind of flower, one kind of grass. There's no one kind of really anything except you. You're unique just like everyone else. So I just think that when it comes to forces out there that want to tell you something and tell you a message, there's no one way you're going to be given the opportunity of getting that particular message, whether it's through deja vu, synchronicity, messages, intuition, a little tick in the back of your head, or, some people say, oh, storm's coming, my knees are acting up and stuff like that. There's more than one ways where messages can get out and knowings, as to put it, can come around. I'll give an example. I thought it was interesting one time. Um, in the reality of my world, I actually went to get a glass of orange juice for myself. I went, got my cup, put it down, went to the refrigerator, and I came back. The cup was gone. And I was the only one at home at the time, so not that somebody could take it as far as I know. I went around the house looking for that cup, and I found it in my living room, and it was already filled with orange juice. What happened?
How
So
so?
I, so yeah. So I got the impression sometimes that we can be taken out of our reality and maybe we were sent on missions. And when they put us back, sometimes they get it wrong. And I think time can sometimes work a little bit like a conveyor belt at a grocery store. If they put circles on, they tell you to put your groceries in those circles. And it's easy if they run it really slow, if they decide to do it that way. But if they run it faster, then it would be harder for you to get exactly on target. So I think it's something similar to that. I think that time has seemed to have sped up, or something has happened to where it's harder for them to pinpoint you when they want to put you back, and sometimes they get it wrong. Uh, Otherwise, the other thing that could happen is I actually went into a parallel universe. And I have seen myself go into parallel universe many, many, many times. I've seen parallel worlds. I'm constantly moving into it. And I can give you an example. There's times where my husband would wear a specific T-shirt, and he would be watching TV in the bedroom, and I would see him wear that T-shirt. He did put that T-shirt on that particular morning, and then I would leave, go make dinner, and come back. He's wearing a completely different T-shirt. I said, "Did you change your T-shirt?" Because no. Well, how is it that he was wearing a Mario T-shirt throughout the majority of the day, but by the time dinner came around, he's wearing his Kool-Aid T-shirt? And he said he didn't change. So I think that somehow I have been moving through parallel points of time, and just parallel worlds, if you will. You can move through parallel times and worlds in both one or the other at the same time. It happens. And I think the Mandela effect and deja vu, well, I think deja vu can happen whether you're moving through different parts of the universe. Deja vu can happen. One of the theories that I had was that because our brain remembers absolutely everything, but whether we can recall it up is totally different. But since it remembers everything, and if you somehow read a specific chapter in a book and then you put your book down, you come back up, you pick it up, and you're like, wait a minute, I know I read this, or what happened? Maybe there's a book you never read, and somehow you know everything about at least the first chapter. You didn't get to reading that first chapter yet. And I think it's because your brain remembers everything and you end up in a hiccup in a time, like kind of a little bit of a sort of causality loop thing, because time is not really linear. It's not point A to point B, it moves around. And so we can always loop back to where we just were a few seconds before, to a few hours before. A lot of times I've been in restaurants that I've never been before. There's no way I could ever have been there. I'm in a state that I've never been in. And somehow that restaurant's familiar. I even remember the menu. So what happened? That can happen. And the Mandela effect, I think when CERN was activated, I think they were messing with a lot of stuff that they shouldn't have messed with, including our perception with time and place, being in a certain reality of the universe, like, I don't know, certain dimensions, if you will. Um, and I think it's just that we have been moving back and forth, similar to like a tidal wave, ebb back and forth. And if you've seen things switch around and then switch back, that's would be your clue. And I've seen times where I put something down, like my wallet, and I put it down on a specific spot. I when come back, it's gone, and it's put somewhere where there's no way I would actually put it there. So there's are things in our world that moves around, and I think it's almost similar to, because we've seen that pattern, like we call it the flower of life, not the flower of death, but if we've seen the flower of life, we've seen these 369 pattern. I think our world and our lives are almost rotating within these particular number patterns. And so things are going to either be repeated, changed around, then we're brought back to it. And that's why it may seem deja vu like. It may seem that we are put in a certain timeline and then brought back and then taken out. And so that's why things may appear different, or we're possibly taken out of our timeline, and when ETs try to put us back, or we're put back into the consciousness, that's why you have this missing time, Michael, that I think that somehow you may have been taken out, put back, and that's why the time looked like it zipped on you. And when you get put back, sometimes some things are not totally quite right. So it's very possible. So I've experienced a lot of things that happen here, even in this house. It almost makes you wonder if it's sort of a nexus on some of the stuff.
Yeah, I can believe that, and I too experience time anomalies quite a lot, and I have some things that I check in every time I suspect that I've switched in reality, and I'll share with you one of the things that I check is what is the story with Edgar Cayce and Atlantis in this particular reality? Because there are realities where that didn't happen and Casey was discredited. Even those other stuff was still very helpful, the self-improvement type of stuff that people continued with that, but his Atlantis stuff was not the work. Then there are realities where Atlantis was proven was that the temple rose from Bimini. And there are newspaper articles that you can look up online, and there are, all sorts of accounts of it with photographs. So that is one of the indications I use to make sure I'm in the same reality I was in before. What's the story with Atlantis Neglecase? Because there's different variations of it. And other people use like the Bernstein Bears and
Oh yeah.
actual what
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
The Atlantis thing is one of the things that I use. We're approaching the end of today's conversation, and I need to ask you guys some questions because I have a lot of shows and I'm developing a lot of new shows all the time, and I resurrect shows that I haven't done in a while as like new mini series or limited series or long running series, depending on how they go. So I like you both, and you have a lot of experience and insight to contribute. So I want to make sure that I match you with the platforms that would interest you the most. So we'll start there. You guys have experienced the UFO entity experience. Do you want to continue there? Michael?
Sure. Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe you both experienced the Pride of Olympus, which is the Star Trek Stargate science fiction one.
I
And
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
we came to the conclusion that we're going to tell stories about the different gods and how they're going to team up together to fix the mess they made on various worlds, real and imaginary. That's where we left that. And so you're interested in continuing that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like fun,
That
actually.
sounds awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Cryptids. I have mythical monsters, creepy cryptids, and fabulous beasts, and I change the title sometimes. But are you guys interested in cryptids? We're starting with the Mummy.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with some. I'm just getting into cryptids, but yeah, I'm happy to contribute if I can.
Okay, and the other one is what we've been talking about today, which is like other world adventures. So we're going to deal with the nature of reality and anomalies in time and space, and different types of experiences you can have through meditation, through dreaming. Although I don't take substances beyond vitamins, some people take substances and have weird experiences. So we're talking about all these different things. Are you interested in that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I mean, this allows us to even tap into the certain um, beings or people or situation being like if I needed a message sent, I'll ask Hermes to send a message to somebody for me because I don't have their phone number or something. I need to let somebody know something. So I mean, there's always, outlets for things and conduits that we can write on.
And what I want to do with some of these is what happened with the theurgy. You guys know what theurgy is?
You mentioned it one time.
Yeah.
Theurgy is an ancient Greco-Roman Egyptian discipline that allowed you to embody and express the divine, to become an anchor for the divine in this world, an anchor in this world so they can act and interact in this world. So I started a bunch of interviews, then we went on to a show, and the show was going on for like 7 years. And we talked all about all this stuff with theurgy, and people started becoming aware what theurgy is. And then we discussed the idea of, hey, wouldn't it have been cool if we recorded all this stuff and we wrote a book? So unfortunately we didn't. And the station no longer exists that had all these shows chronicled or archived. So I went to YouTube and we started a new series of shows, and we worked on this book, and it took about 2 years to get the book together and to get it edited, and it got published by Llewellyn, which is a major new age publisher. So now I'm giving talks by Zoom at conventions and stuff like that, and because of that, all these other activities, some of them have podcasts or other activity tied up with them, some of them don't yet. But like, for instance, now that we have the theurgy group, we're doing projects with that. And then we have new shows. One of them is called Thoughts on Theurgy. It's for people who aren't Greco-Roman Egyptians spiritually, who have different ideas about godhood. So it can be anything from prayer or things that don't normally come up in ancient stuff that people do now. So people are going to be discussing, like we did today, different ways that they have connecting with the divine and anchoring into the sport. So that already started. I've interviewed people for that. You guys are interested because you're full of information and thoughts on that. I'll schedule you for that as well. The other one is called Olympian Paths, and that's for people who aren't Greek and have experiences with Olympians. So Sue just mentioned she called on Hermes. If she wants to interview her how she deals with the Greek gods, how she found out about the Greek gods and things like that, and how they inspire her own unique path. You guys are welcome. I'll schedule you for that. I don't know if you're working with the Greek Olympians, Michael, but that's about that. And then I have Theurgy Beyond the Inner Sea, or the Middle Sea. Middle Sea is the Mediterranean, and all the stuff is around the Mediterranean antiquity. But there's God work in Hinduism and in African religions and Oriental religions. So it's to get people who have these different perspectives and how do they connect with the divine, not using the standard Greco-Roman Egyptian symbolism and information that it's currently based on. So that's pretty much what's going on in the immediate present. If you guys are interested in anything like that, what I'll do is I'll put you on notice if you're interested. I can't put you on every single show, obviously, but if I know what you're interested in, I could schedule it and stretch it out this way. You're an active part of what's going on, and if you want to be on a particular show, I'll do my best to put you on that particular show. Sound good?
Yeah.
It does. And one thing I would offer to Hercules is, some of the subject matters like that we might not be familiar with. Maybe, can watch one of the, participate, semi-observe one of the episodes and then message you afterwards and say, yeah, this is really cool. I think I could get along with this, or you guys are really talking out of my wheelhouse. Not really sure, how familiar I am with this, so probably not the best of fit. And so it's hard sometimes to say, yes, let's do this because we're not 100% sure what, is going on and what's being talked about or, being done there. And so it's kind of hard to sit there and go, yes, I'll do that, or no, maybe not. And so I was just seeing if that option was something you ever thought about doing with people.
Of course, all the shows are available for free on YouTube. So all somebody needs to do is go visit my page, Hercules Invictus, on YouTube, and you can find each and every show we've done for the years we've been on YouTube. I believe there are 500 of them. So yeah, if anybody finds something on an old show that we talked about and wants to talk about that again, just let me know and I'll see what I can do as fast as I can do it. And then I have other things that are beyond the YouTube, although they are on YouTube. Is I have something on physical fitness. Before I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I was the chairperson of the Mayor's Wellness Campaign, the Access for All Committee, and the Stigma-Free Committee. Stigma-Free was to keep the mental illness stigma-free. People don't discriminate against people who have mental illness. Access for All was to make sure that our town was accessible to people with wheelchairs and things like that. And the Mayor's Wellness Campaign is using the resources in town to get as healthy as you possibly can. And so we still have two shows that deal with that. One is called Herculean Physique, and the other one's called Olympian Mind, Olympian Body. We're still doing that with the podcast. And then I have a group called, I forget what I called it. It's where I share my journey and I invite people to share theirs. And then if somebody sees the group and wants to talk about their journey with wellness, they can schedule like a opening on one of the shows. And again, this is free, and share how they're trying to get healthy. So again, our purpose isn't to convert anybody to any particular way. And we all disagree about things. So I have two other people who do that with me. One is Brian Foley. He's like 10, 15 years younger than me. And then I have Michael Belushi, who's like 10, 15 years older than me. And Michael is like a vegetarian and I'm a carnivore. So we disagree about that, but we're still like gym buddies and we share our journeys. He really knows a lot about vitamins and herbs. I don't anymore. So he gives me advice on that. I give him advice on things that I know about. And again, we're not trying to convince anybody of anything. We're trying to share our individual journey as humans, what succeeded, what failed, knowing that just because it works for you now, it might not work for you later. Just because it works for you, it might not work for somebody else. It's just sharing this information. And if you want to get involved with that, that's too. That's free to participate in, free to belong to, and tied into a lot of other things going on.
That would be awesome. I'm available for a lot of the time, so if you want me to help you discuss things or we can talk about stuff, that would be great. And I know a variety of range of topics.
Good. And if you send me the topics you can talk about, that'll help a lot.
Okay.
So I
Awesome.
just the things that are going on. And again, I'm diabetic and I have that's pretty much under control in the high normal range. I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and I have arthritis of the spine, so it's become like difficult to walk sometimes. But I'm still plugging away at it, and I'm still weightlifting, and I'm still doing all that stuff. So, yeah, we explore why are we doing this stuff? Like somebody like Michael who's in the 70s, not you, Michael, but the other Michael. He's in the 70s. He's still lifting weights too. You can't stop. It's involved with weightlifting. It becomes who you are and what you do. So we explore things like that. And then again, there are no answers, no permanent ones, but in sharing the information, you get exposed to different perspectives and you get to expand your own perspective or narrow your perspective. And that's always a good thing. Growth is good. And now we've time for one more question other than sharing your information. I've shared with you a little bit about what's going on, what will be going on, and what can conceivably go on. What would you guys like to get out of this adventure? Is there any particular topic you would like to focus on that fits into the overall scheme of what we're doing?
I think for me, I like talking about a range of things. Health and wellness is another one, tied
Okay.
with the spiritual side as well as the holistic side on how to handle it, because it's one of the things I do as a meditation specialist is that a lot of times if you quiet your system down, your body will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to combat whatever ails you. And that's what I teach people. So we can talk about that. We can talk about stuff in the universe, whatever. And I tap into quite a lot.
Okay, so I will schedule you or let you know what slots are available so you can schedule yourself for the fitness and health and wellness show. We'll start there and you can talk about meditation. I meditate 2 or 3 times a day and I find it very helpful. And Michael, how about you?
Um, I would say a topic, I'm not sure if it's in your repertoire, but something that I've noticed that I have to step back and deal with a lot of times is learning how to communicate and listen. And I'm I don't mean like listen as in like listen to what people are saying and being, like present in a conversation. I mean listen as in when somebody is telling you something, you are picking up on more than what they're saying. Because how many times in conversations have you talked with someone and you're like, how are you doing? And you get a sense, you can feel like there's something wrong. And they're like, oh, I'm fine. I'm doing really well, actually. And so people will go, okay. And they move on. But that person's really hurting inside because you're not really listening And so I'm not sure, a lot of times, a lot of people don't understand how to do that, and there's no real clear way I've come across where you could say, "Here, watch this episode and you'll be set," kind of motif. But also another thing though is, for example, like astral travel. If somebody was to say, "How do you astral travel?" I don't know, I just do. Well, that doesn't help somebody. And so if there's, you know, a way that we could in a group be like, topics where, things that people do naturally versus people who maybe don't can talk back and forth and be like, well, do you do this? Well, yeah. How did you know to do that? I just knew. Oh, well, so and so taught me this. And so it gives both sides of people a voice and also people watching comfort in knowing, hey, that guy does it naturally like I do. So that's okay. That doesn't make me weird or anything. I'm more normal than I thought. And others are like, oh, I should go watch what that guy recommended because yeah, he's doing what I'm trying to do and maybe that'll help me. So it kind of gives resources.
That I have scheduled under the one of the shows, the one that deals with otherworld adventures. How do you astral travel? How do you work with dreams? How do you tune into your intuition? How do you do those things and have panels for people to
Right.
discuss it like you're suggesting? But yes, that's definitely on board, and I will definitely include you in those.
Well,
And
thank you.
Stu, because Stu is a meditation specialist. I'm sure she has information on those topics to share as well.
Well, and one thing I will say about meditation, I always thought meditation was you sit down and you have your legs crossed in a certain way, your hands in a certain mudra position, and you're just there. And I was like, that never really worked for me. I'm like, I could do that for maybe 5, 10 minutes, and then I'm like, yeah, my mind is off somewhere thinking about something, and I'm like, I've lost it.
Uh,
But when I'm cooking or when I'm doing stuff in normal routine, I realize, oh, information starts flowing, ideas start clarifying, and somebody said that's because you're meditating. And I was like, that's meditating? What?
I have to cut this here because
it
we went
is.
time. But yes, you're
Yeah,
right. It's meditation. I don't cross my legs or any of that either, and I meditate.
yeah.
Before we go, how can people get in touch with you? We'll start with Michael and reach you and enter your world.
You can find me on Facebook under Michael Kopf, and if you just send me a message, it's usually better to friend request first because I don't always see the messages that are classified under the other category. And yeah, that's pretty much right now the best way to get a hold of me. And you can find my books on Amazon under my name as well.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Sue, how can people enter your world?
If people want to get a hold of me, they can find me on Facebook. Same thing, find me. You can talk me to me on Messenger. I'm also contactable on Twitter and Instagram on their versions of their messenger as well. You can message me if they have any questions or dilemma. They want to schedule an appointment with me for any kind of a counseling, if you will, and meditation directives for whatever ails you.
Thank you very much to both of you. You're awesome, and I look forward to our next interaction, which should be in a few days. And I wish you well and success in all your endeavors. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Hercules.
Thank you. That's
Good night.